All right, guys, what's up? It's Jack, and welcome back to another video. And today we are going to continue the tradition that we did with Halloween and with Thanksgiving, and we are going to continue on with Christmas. As of the time of this recording, we are a few days away from Christmas, and quite frankly, I have 10 movies here that I would recommend for Christmas. Now, with that being said, I know that some of these movies are not necessarily Christmas movies in the eyes of a few people, and I totally get it, but I still wanted to add them in here simply because of the fact that it made the list a lot more diverse. And at the same time, there are also a few movies in here that people that are not necessarily into the holidays for personal reasons of their own would still enjoy. Now, granted, they wouldn't enjoy all of them, but there are definitely a few that they would enjoy despite the fact that they are not very much into the holidays. So in a sense, it could be their own type of holiday movie without being that holiday movie necessarily. But at the same time, if you view it as one, you can still embrace it as such, just like if you didn't. All right, so let's get into the list before this video gets too long. So the first one is actually very obvious because I used this one in a thumbnail recently, and that is Bad Santa. Bad Santa was acted beautifully by Billy Bob Thornton. I don't think anybody else could have done that role as well as Billy Bob Thornton did. I'm pretty sure some other actors might have gotten close, but Billy Bob, for me personally, takes the cake with a role like this. It just fit him like a glove. And again, it is actually one of those movies that you don't necessarily have to be a fan of Christmas to appreciate, because it kind of goes into that as well a little bit in the movie when you see it. Now, granted, this movie is considered old by now, obviously, but it's still a goodie. Just because it's an oldie doesn't mean it's a goodie, doesn't mean it's not a goodie. And if you enjoy dark humor, if you enjoy Billy Bob Thornton, I highly recommend you check this film out. There's definitely lots of laughs to be had, and at the same time, it actually is. It does celebrate Christmas without shoving it in your face, so to speak. It really is it's kind of up to the viewer on whether or not they want to accept it as such, which is one of the reasons why it made the list. So that's Bad Santa. So let's go on to the next one, Home Alone. Now, to me, Home Alone is always going to be a classic no matter what. To me, Home Alone is always going to be one of those movies that at least once a year you want to come back and watch. Home Alone was a movie that definitely took the 90s by storm, and it was, the cinematography was good, the acting was good. Macaulay Culkin's legend was born with Home Alone, and quite frankly, it seems like ever since Home Alone, it never stopped for him. He went from Home Alone 1 to Home Alone 2, and then, The Page Master, and he did another one, which was actually kind of a thriller, a horror thriller, whatnot, called The Good Son, which showed off his acting chops, even though he was still a kid. I mean, he did Richie Rich. He did, Macaulay Culkin's career was he was that kid actor. Back then, there was nobody, he had that number one spot for a long time, and it all happened because of this film. And the other characters the family and of course Marv and Harry also provided a really good type of balance to the movie. And of course, it is still a Christmas themed movie, but again, it doesn't necessarily shove it in your face like some other Christmas movies do. And I think that's one of the things that definitely stood out about Home Alone, because it was not just about the importance of family and Christmas and stuff like that. It was also the fact that what is every parent's nightmare, leaving their kids home alone, right? And being home alone was one of those things. And the fact that it got turned into a movie was pretty much a stroke of genius, because it was also executed very well. So definitely highly recommend you see Home Alone if you have not. All right, moving on to the next one. I was going to choose Die Hard, but then I didn't want to be so predictable. So what instead, I replaced Die Hard with a movie that I personally enjoy more. And even though a lot of people wouldn't consider this a Christmas movie, it does take place on Christmas. And I personally like this kind of movie more than Die Hard. And that is Lethal Weapon. Lethal Weapon is a movie that I really love because the chemistry and the camaraderie between Danny Glover's Roger Murtaugh and Mel Gibson's Martin Riggs is something that ended up spawning 3 extra sequels. And all those sequels were good and everything, but Lethal Weapon 1 is my personal favorite out of the bunch. And it was the first one I saw. I was 14. The movie came out in the 1980s, and, I didn't see it until I was 14. So I was it was at a much different time. But with that being said, it was a film that I just couldn't stop watching whenever it was on HBO, or Cinemax for that matter. And it was a movie that really aged very well through time. And I really like the relationship between both of those two guys, you know, and there's definitely comedy in there as well, but it still remains that seriousness of a rated R movie. And it also goes to show how much like family these two partners ended up being in terms of where the relationship started and to where the relationship was towards the end of the movie. Or should I even say before the end of the movie? Because you would see character development take place from start to finish between Riggs and Murtaugh, which is the heart of the film. So Lethal Weapon, hands down, is a movie that you should see. And if you have not, I highly recommend it, especially if you are my age. All right, let's go on to the next one. The next one is another movie that takes place on Christmas, but a lot of people will not consider it a Christmas movie, and that is Batman Returns. You know, my biggest complaint with Batman Returns is the fact that we didn't get enough Batman, but we got plenty of Catwoman, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, which is a fan favorite to this very day. And of course, Danny DeVito's Penguin, which is, again, portrayed very, very well. Obviously, Colin Farrell recently has taken up the mantle of the Penguin, and damn, he is just absolutely nailing it. And it's obviously a different take, but it's a good take for sure. And, you know, back in 1992, when this film came out, it was also one of those films to where, you know, obviously Tim Burton was allowed to do whatever the hell he wanted, so you could tell from the cinematography, but it was also a film that wasn't actually, you know, like a lot of parents took their kids to see it expecting it to be a movie for kids, and it wasn't. But they blame Batman Returns for that. And even if you look at Batman 1, like the original that came out in 1989, the prequel, if you think about it, when you look at that film wasn't really meant for kids either, if you think about it. So I think people just got too tough on Batman Returns in terms of, oh, it's not made for kids. Well, look at the first one, it wasn't made for kids either. But the second one took place on Christmas. It does have that Christmassy vibe feel to it, especially being a Tim Burton film. But it is a good alternative to a Christmas movie, in my opinion. So if you want to kind of watch a movie during Christmas but doesn't necessarily revolve around the holiday, despite the fact that it takes place around the holiday, you really can't go wrong with Batman Returns. And it was Michael Keaton's final Batman when he was still young. Obviously, he's made a return in The Flash, which was, in my opinion, the highlight of it all, with all due respect to the rest of the film. But with that being said, you know, I really wish we could have gotten a little bit more Batman in Michael Keaton's Batman Returns. So that is another one on my list that I would recommend. Next up, definitely a Christmas movie, Jack Frost. Now, obviously, Michael Keaton, you know, plays Jack Frost in this one, even though you don't really see Michael Keaton that much in the film for obvious reasons, because, well, his character kind of passes away in the film unexpectedly and then comes back in the form of a snowman temporarily. And that is pretty much the premise of the film. And, you know, there's a lot of back and forth between him and his son, and everything else that goes with that. So, and it sounds like a tragic film, and in some ways it kind of is, but it's really minimally done. I mean, there are definitely some emotional parts in the film, and it's one of the more emotional parts that get to me, because I lost my my biological father, when I was a kid. So I can definitely relate in that aspect. But Jack Frost, though, did a really good job of balancing things out by making, you know, there's definitely some funny parts, there's definitely some sad parts, and a lot of in-between parts. So therefore, whether you are younger, whether you are a grown-ass adult, or whether you're somewhere in between, I think there's a lot of relatability with the film. And Jack Frost, in my opinion, is underrated, actually. I don't know what people think about it today, to be honest. But it was, I guess it was met with, you know, with decent respect, among fans back in the, I believe, late 90s when it came out. But with that being said, you know, I think it's one of those films that aged very well, because it didn't really shove too many things down your throat. You know what I mean? It just felt natural, if that makes sense. So Jack Frost would be another one that I would recommend. All right, next up, Jingle All The Way. Now, this one, in a way, did kind of shove a few ways down your throat, but I put it on the list simply because of the fact that I was so used to seeing Arnold being the Terminator. I was so used to seeing Arnold play in these different action roles. And here he is in a film over here to where he plays a completely different character. It's completely comedy based. And to see that, you know, to see that fully embraced like that was a breath of fresh air that, as a kid, I didn't expect it to hit me as well as it did, but it did. I remember when the commercials were coming out, with the previews were coming out for that movie, I thought it was hilarious, because, you know, it's like, oh my gosh, I get to see the Terminator do this and that. So it was appealing to me. So, you know, for me personally, I would say, yeah, I would say Jingle All The Way is pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't say it's like one of those, you know, films that you should not miss or anything, but if you're looking to like just shut off your brain and not give a damn, I would say give it a shot, especially if you're a fan of Arnold. So, all right, let's move on to the next one. The next one is definitely a Christmas movie, and the Santa Claus. So, the Santa Claus, when that movie first came out, I was actually very impressed. Well, first of all, I like the story. You know, a divorced dad becomes Santa Claus, but the way he becomes Santa Claus is very interesting. I mean, they took a really interesting premise and they just ran with it, but it was executed very well. And the movie was also super relatable, whether you were a parent, whether you were a kid, or whether you just wanted to see that fantasy film of somebody becoming Santa Claus, right? So, basically Santa Claus, falls off the roof, they try to look for identification and finds a card that says, if something happens to me, put on the suit, the reindeer will know what to do. And he basically, long story short, puts it on, and things just kind of, take place from there. And he slowly goes into that transition of becoming Santa Claus and all the responsibilities and stuff that come with it. And Tim Allen absolutely ruled the 90s with Home Improvement. And when you started seeing him in big movie films, that just goes to show you how far he'd come. Now, obviously, TV shows are no slouch, obviously. But with that being said, when you see somebody that's going from TV show to movies, or, seeing them do both, it's like, okay. And it was Tim Allen's time at the time. In the 90s, that guy was definitely a name that a lot of people knew for sure. And the fact that you got to see him in this film, and the fact that the film was executed so well, is definitely something that I definitely tip my hat to. The Santa Claus is a solid Christmas film, in my opinion, and I would definitely recommend watching it. All right, next up is arguably, if not probably, the best Christmas film on this list. And that is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. If you have not seen this film, watch it. And there's plenty of reasons to watch it beyond just Christmas, right? Because it is funny. Chevy Chase and his National Lampoon series, that there's been plenty of movies done throughout time, never fails to miss the spot. It never fails to hit the spot. Simple as that. I didn't see this movie until I was in high school, which I was very late to the party. And when I saw it, I was laughing my ass off in class, and people were looking at me like, "You never seen this before?" I'm like, "No." They're like, "What?" So I was like, "How in the world did this guy never see this movie before?" Back when I was in high school, I was 18 years old. So during senior year, it was during the holidays. We were watching a movie, just chilling, and it was National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. So I would say, I don't care how old you are, if you have not seen National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, watch it. You will not regret it. I pretty much guarantee it. So arguably the best movie for Christmas on this list, and it is one that is going to make you laugh, hands down. All right, let's move on to the next one. Another film that is not necessarily considered a Christmas film, but does take place on Christmas, and that is Gremlins. Gremlins in a way is, I guess, classified as a horror film, but I definitely don't see it as a horror film. I can kind of understand how some people do, but I don't. But for me, one of the things when I was younger was that the laughing remained memorable of the creatures. You got the laughing of the creatures. But obviously, as I gotten older and I started becoming interested in more mature things, so to speak, when I was, in my teens, one of the things that started standing out to me was Phoebe Kates. That woman was absolutely gorgeous, very easy on the eyes, brunette, stunning. But with that being said, Gremlins is definitely a fun movie to watch. Again, another film that someone that may not be that into Christmas would definitely get a kick out of this film, for sure. And if you like brunettes that are easy on the eyes, yeah, you're not going to forget about Phoebe Kates anytime soon. I'll tell you that much. All right, let's move on to the last movie on the list. And this one is, I still give this one a nod for being a Christmas film, even though it celebrates the other holiday, which is Hanukkah. But I saw this film, I thought it was really good, and I wanted to at least put it on the list as of not only in respects to the holiday of Hanukkah, but also because of the fact that, well, it kind of, to me at least, right, to me, it gives a nod to both holidays. And of course, it was made by Adam Sandler, and that is 8 Crazy Nights. When I first saw 8 Crazy Nights, I was in my late 20s when I saw 8 Crazy Nights, actually. And I was actually not only very entertained by the film, but there was also a sense of peace about it, as crazy as that sounds. And of course, it has Adam Sandler's type of humor style in it, and it's an animated film, but it's a good one. It's a good one. It's going to get some laughs out of you. and it's definitely Adam Sandler. And he also plays multiple characters with all the different kind of voices that he's able to do. I think even when Adam Sandler doesn't make a film that's as good as, you know, a Happy Gilmore or a Billy Madison or a Wedding Singer, you know, even when he's making other films that are not as good, you can't deny the fact that the guy is actually multi-talented. It just doesn't always get used well, so to speak. And personally speaking, I'm looking forward to Happy Gilmore too. That film is being made, and I can't wait to see it because just about everybody that was in the previous film that are major players are going to be making a return, specifically Shooter McGavin, obviously, but obviously the late Carl Weathers, rest in peace, will not be in that one, and obviously Bob Barker won't. But I'm pretty sure there's going to be cameos and fun moments that give a nod of respect to the first film and kind of continue the story of Happy Gilmore. So that's what I'm looking forward to. But yeah, 8 Crazy Nights, you can't go wrong with. In my eyes, it honors both Hanukkah and Christmas, and I couldn't leave it off the list. Simple as that. So with that being said, I want to know, what do you guys think of the list? Do you enjoy these movies? Is there any one of these movies that you personally like, or that you personally haven't seen that you might want to be interested in watching? And if you do, you know, let me know down in the comment section below, because to some people, some of these movies mean a lot, you know, whether it's in the name of Christmas, or whether it's because they just like the movie for whatever reasons of their own. I would say I would love to hear it. You know, if you have anything you want to share in the comments section, you know, involving these movies, let me know in the comment section down below. Love to hear it. So with that being said, that concludes the list. I hope you guys have a happy and safe holiday, whether you celebrate Christmas, whether you celebrate Hanukkah, or whether you celebrate anything, or should I say nothing at all. Even if you don't celebrate the Hanukkah, the holidays, I hope you guys have a safe and fun time during this time of year. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. So leave all comments down below. Thank you all for taking the time to watch and or listen. I'll catch you guys on the next one.